Right, my friends, today we're doing 15 freestyle tricks ranked easy to hard with a little bit of a tutorial in between. Let's get to number one. Right, trick number one is the board flip. Now, this is the simplest and easiest trick you can possibly learn, and to be honest, it's exactly what it says on the tin. If you turn your attention to the board, all you have to do is have it upside down like this with your feet slightly underneath it, and then we're going to jump forward, causing the board to flip and landing back on it, hence the name. So this one's super simple and super easy. So we're going to pop the board upside down, we're going to put our toes underneath each wheel, and all we have to do is bend down, jump forward slightly so that the board flips, and keep our knees bent when we land for a bit of stability. That is the board flip. On to number two. Number two, the revert. This one's easiest in fakie and is as simple as gliding them wheels across the ground. You'll know you've made it when you've heard that sound, and that rhymed, didn't even mean it to. So if you hear that, you know you're reverting. As I said, the easiest version is fakie, which means we're riding backwards. So I'm gonna turn my shoulders the way I wanna go, lift a little bit of weight off this leg and lift it with this leg. And you should be able to turn yourself around and start riding forward again. So I'll show you one more time. Riding backwards really slow, lift the weight off that front leg and spin it around. If you hear the revert sound, you're good. And if you wanna do it too fakie, just ride normal and repeat the same thing, shifting your weight onto that foot as you go. So number three on our list is the body varial. Another real simple one. Again, quite easy if you've been skateboarding for a couple of weeks or whatever, but it's a stepping stone in the progress nonetheless. We're gonna have our feet lined up with our shoulders like this. Fairly wide stance, and then we're gonna jump and try and land with our feet facing the exact opposite way. Now, it can be a bit sketchy to do while you're rolling, but if we bring the board to a standstill, wide stance, shoulders in line, jump, and land the same way facing the other way. Try and keep your feet flat when you land, just so there's no wobbling. Practice it as much as you need to. Simple, but it might take a bit of practice. That's the body varial. Next on our adventure to freestyle trick heaven is Casper. Now, this is one of my personal favorites. We're gonna put our board down, again like this. We're gonna put our back foot over the tail like that. We're gonna put our front foot underneath about where the wheels are there, and we're just gonna lift this knee up and put most of our weight here, just so we can balance it. It's gonna take you a little while of practice to actually be able to hold it up, but that is essentially a Casper. And to get out of it, all we need to do is replicate what we learned with the board flip and just jump forward very slightly. So lift her up and jump forward like that. You might land with your feet a bit close together, but just try bend the knees when you do, and you should be all right to roll away clean. So this is something you would obviously practice while stationary, because if you want to slide this along the ground, it's going to take a lot more training than just learning it on flat. So lift up and jump forward. And that is the Casper. Next, we've got one of my personal favorite tricks when I was growing up. I used to do this all the time, especially down gaps before I could ollie properly, and that is the boneless. Now, if you don't know what boneless looks like, it's this. Essentially, what you have to do is grab the board with one hand, step off with the other, straighten out the leg for a bit of style, and then just jump back on. It's really not that complicated, but the timing is probably the hardest part, like just learning when to take your front foot off, to grab the board at the same time. It's going to take a lot of practice, but we're going to break it down real quick to make it as easy as possible. So step one simplified is we're just going to step off with this foot, and that's literally it. All we need to do is just step off with the foot, get used to riding, step off here, your weight's mainly on here. Next step is to grab the board. So we're going to take our foot off, put our hand on. Sometimes you want to scrape the tail on the way up, just to give it a bit of tweakage to straighten the leg. Put it down and step back on. I'll show you one more time. Riding along, front foot off, hand on, tail up, scrape, down, and roll away. Now that is essentially every movement you need for this trick, but ideally, obviously, we need to put it all in one fluid motion. So practice what I've just shown you, taking a little bit of time between each step just to get your mind used to the order of which you need to go. But after a while, we want to add it all together. So it's literally just step off, grab, straight and jump, and we're back on. Now that is essentially it. If you did that, I would certainly count it. But if we want to really style it out, we can tweak that leg out as much as we can and ride away. So next up we've got the Boneless 180. Now quite a few people actually find this easier than the regular forward facing Boneless, mainly because when you do the 180 your leg just kind of naturally goes that way, as opposed to when you do it straight. It's kind of difficult for some people to extend their leg out and then bring it back to facing forward again. So with that out of the way, it's essentially the same thing for the first few steps. Front foot off, hand on, tail up, scrape, but instead of going like this and jumping straight back on, we're gonna go like this and ride away backwards. The first few steps still apply the exact same. So if you've practiced the regular Boneless, you should find this one quite easy, and perhaps vice versa as well. So we're gonna grab the board, turn, drop it, and get back on. Like I said, when you first do this, just break it down in incremental steps. Don't worry about jumping and launching yourself first. Just take it slow. Foot off, hand on, scrape tail, spin, put it down, and ride away. Now, you're gonna do the same thing that you did with the last one. Just decrease the time between each step as you go and as you get more comfortable, and eventually you should end up with something a bit better than that. Let me redo that. And you should end up with something like this. On to the next one. Next up, we got the Mongo Healy, another personal favorite of mine. A little bit weirder to learn, but you take one foot off and spin the board around like that. Now, the reason why I first learned this was because I'd be coming down the road at fast speeds and wanted to stop myself before I would hit a traffic light or crossing or something. And in England, the roads aren't really power slidable, especially not when you're on a pathway. So in order to stop myself, I started doing this. Now the trick itself is actually really fun, and it's not as difficult as it looks to learn. Essentially, to spin the board, you're using your back foot completely. So to do that, we're gonna have our heel slightly on the tail and our front foot exactly where it is here. So our front foot is gonna be like this. Heel on the tail, and our toes are gonna be sitting just north of the back truck. And using that, we can turn ourselves around like that. Now, a good way to practice this one would be to do more than one step on the floor with the other foot. So if you stand in front of me so you can see. So a good way to practice it would be just to take that front foot off and then just keep dabbing it until you get all the way around, and then put the other foot back on and roll away. Now we're going to do less and less dabs as we go on. So let's try and do it with a 2 dab, like 180, and then again to facing forward. And finally, the finished product should be nice and quick, and we can meet it with the front foot about 270. I'll put a couple slow-mos on screen now so you can see how and when you want to put that foot back on. Next one is the Pogo. Now, if your board has chips on the nose or the tail, I would highly encourage maybe leaving this one for now. But if your board is brand new, or if you've got a nicely well-kept tail or whatever, then you should be able to do this one just fine. We're gonna put our board like this, vertical, just like that. We're gonna put our back foot on the truck. Make sure you've got a nice snug fit on that truck. You can really press your shoe against the board and also have your board at a bit of an angle just to make it easier. Then we're gonna use our hand, grab this truck, and we're gonna do a couple hops. Just like that. Just practice that. Try to aim for 2 or 3 hops. Hold the nose, hold the truck, and then just put the other foot in the air and try a few hops. This is another one that's gonna take practice, but the more you do it, the easier it's gonna be. And then when you wanna get out of it, you use your hands, throw the board down, and try and move this foot out the way. So you go like that. I'll show you how to do it in real time. We're gonna go hop, hop, and get away safely. Might take a few tries. You might have a little bit of scrapage on your inner knee / leg, but it's the price we pay for skateboarding. Sometimes things hurt, but if you want to get something cool, if you want to get something unique, you got to put in the time and practice. That's the Pogo. On to the next one. Next one we've got is the Saran wrap. Now basically this one, you're gonna put your foot on there, but we're gonna have our other leg go round the front like that. Again, it's gonna take plenty of practice. This is probably one of the harder ones on the list. You're gonna have your hands like this on the board, just like you would for the Pogo. Just watch the slow-mos and try and figure that out, because this one is more trial and error. But again, if you hold the nose, hold the truck, when you lift this leg around, you obviously wanna let go of the truck just so you can get it all the way around. The more practice you have, the easier it will be. Sometimes you can hit the wheel, but that's just normal. So just keep practicing it. Sometimes you can do 2 as well. Fuck hell. Yeah, my tail is pretty razor tailed at the minute, so it's not very stable. Can get a double one going. Like that. But we do need to get out of it, ideally. So we're not going to get out of this the same way we do the Pogo. For this one, when you're like this, after having done the saran wrap, we just flip the board over with our hand. So your thumb is on the underside of the nose, and then you're just going to use your fingers to flip the board back over. Nice and simple. So up how we talked about, wrap it around and flip it back over. That is the saran wrap. Okay, next you've got the Spacewalk. Now this is essentially a way that we can keep our speed and momentum while we're in manual. So in normal manual you just ride straight like this. So for this one we can almost just start stationary and use the Spacewalk to give us some momentum while we manual. Again, this is probably one of the harder ones, going to require some advanced balance, but if you practice the manual you should be able to adapt this one into your workflow without too much issue. Especially if you're trying to do like long distance manuals, if you run out of speed, this is a great way to be able to give yourself that bit of extra speed to finish the gap. So start off super slow, and then that is the Spacewalk essentially. For this one, we're going to use our hips mainly. Now, you want to make sure that you can manual well. If you can't manual well, this is not going to be one that you want to practice yet. So at least be able to do that. And then once we're in the manual, we're going to use our hips to give us momentum. It's really hard to like do it and show progressive steps because it's kind of an all or nothing trick. So you want to just literally practice your manual, and then when you start getting slow, just start swinging that nose. It's uphill that way, so it's much harder. But yeah, the Spacewalk is something that's going to require a lot of practice. Essentially, you're just using your hips and your front foot to give yourself momentum to keep the manual going a bit longer than you normally would have. On to the next one. Next, you've got the 1 foot nollie shove it. Now this one, you're going to want to make sure that you can ride really comfortably, especially with 1 foot, because we're going to be using that foot that's on the board to pop ourselves a little shove it. So there's a key foot position for this one. If I show you real quick, your toes are going to be opposite of the Mongo healy. So we're going to have our front foot with the toes on the nose and probably a little bit onto the right hand side, just because that's the way my shove it goes. So it gives it a bit of an easier momentum round. Now this one, you can't really sit there and like practice a bunch of incremental steps and whatnot, apart from just seeing if you can pop the shove it in the first place and then trying to get the other foot out of the way. But it's much easier if you just try and land on the board instead of trying to get that foot out of the way to do it like 1-footed. And just slowly get yourself a little bit extra momentum, build that up, build up the strength for that one. But it's always going to be a bit risky just because we can't break it down as much as we normally would. Front foot in the position, other foot in the air out of the way. And there's your nollie shove it, but I'm going to do a clean one for you. So if you go there, and the 1 foot nollie shove should look like this. Nice and simple, pretty low key, a little bit risky, but you got it. So next one is the Casper shove. You remember the Casper from earlier, so we pop our board down just as we did before. Again, foot in the same place, foot in the same place as before, and instead of just jumping forward like we did earlier, we are going to do the shove it. So if you don't know what a shove it is, the board basically turns 180 and you land on it like that. For this one, it's actually probably easier than the original version for some people. So you're going to use your back foot to scoop the board behind you like this, and at the same time your front foot is going to just lift up to help the board on its way around. So you can practice landing 1 foot just like that, and you can really practice this one as much as you want. You can even like put your board next to the grass and then just land in the grass, although you will get a bit of dirt in your wheels, but sometimes safety is more important. But once you're ready, stick that board back down, get yourself nice and low, scoot this foot back, lift this foot up, and land with your knees bent, and that should be your Casper shove. All right, next we've got the pop shove tail grab. Again, this is probably one of the harder ones on the list and definitely easier out of a ramp. But if you can do a pop shove it, which is literally just, then you can do the pop shove it tail grab, as long as you can get a nice bit of pop on that shove it. For this one, we're aiming to catch the board about just over 90 degrees. So if we bend down nice and low, pop it up, go to grab the tail, just like that. Now, this one's gonna take a bunch of practice, and like I said, out of a quarter pipe or a flat bank, way easier. Remember, pop nice and high, and there's your pop shove tail grab. Next, we've got the ollie body varial, probably one of the more complicated ones on the list. It looks easy, but it's definitely a bit harder than it seems. So an ollie body varial looks a little something like this. Bit sketchy, but I'll give you the tips to get that body varial nice and late. So the most important thing for this one is leveling out the board before you try and turn yourself, because if you just pop and try and spin instantly, it's just not gonna work. It does not work like that. You need to pop, level out the board, and then do the turn. Because if you try and do the turn before you've leveled out, you're just gonna end up flipping that bitch. So don't worry about that. Make sure you ollie, push the front foot forward, and then spin your hips at the last second. So watch how the front foot flattens the board before I turn my body. And the last second turn is what keeps us nice and stable. Watch these slow-mos on screen, because it's really hard to like explain it in detail without you being able to see exactly the order in which things happen. So pop, level out, turn, land, roll away. Onto the final trick. So our final trick for this list is the bubble shove it. A nice and simple, yet fairly rare trick that can often get people on a nice letter in a game of skate, if you like to follow me. So this one, you really have to focus on the foot position. Don't try and go rogue and figure it out on your own. Just do exactly what I tell you here, because otherwise it's going to be very difficult. Put your front foot about where the front bolts are, and your back foot is going to be closer to the middle than your actual back bolts. Now, when I try and explain this trick to others, a lot of people assume that your back foot needs to go like here, near the tail, but you couldn't be more wrong. It's so difficult to do it like that. It just does not work. The key to it, front foot there, back foot close to the middle. That way that when you pull back with this foot and get the board to go like this, you've got enough space in the middle to push the board over. A great thing about this one as well is you can practice with the board like this. Just have that one foot in the back foot position and then just pull it towards you and then push it over, towards you, over, towards you, over, towards you, over. You can practice it like that as much as you want. Then once you've done that, we are gonna take it back to the roll instead. Then once you've practiced it enough with that one foot technique, we're gonna stand stationary and just try and do a little like that. I mean, that was terrible, but you get the idea. We put our front foot down, put our back foot in position, put it towards us, and do that. You're gonna have a bunch stationary where you just land on it and bounce straight back off like I just did. You're gonna have a bunch like that too. So if anything, this trick is probably a little bit easier with a tiny bit of momentum riding forward. So once we've got the form of the trick down, we're gonna add the tiniest bit of speed to try and help encourage the board to go all the way around. So we're gonna put our front foot where we need it, our back foot in position, pull it towards us and scoop it over like we practiced. You'll get a few dodgy landings like that where your feet are close together near the nose. It's just the nature of the trick, but eventually, once you've added a bit of speed, we should end up with something like this one. The final hurrah of the bubble shove. Just like that. That's 15 freestyle tricks. See you in the next video.